Catherine Staples Lynch.
Okay. And your date of birth?
July 8, 1928.
Okay. Now, who is your mother?
My mother was Catherine Sullivan, one of 5. She had sisters Mary Dill, Helen Reardon, Ed Sullivan, the old Forsheim Shoe, and Jeff. Her mother was Nellie. Her mother was Nellie, born in Hancock. And Nellie was one of 7 sisters, and they all settled in Butte.
So, was your mother born in Butte?
My mother was born back in Michigan.
In Houghton, Hancock?
Now, the younger brothers were born in Butte.
So,
they came out here in 1898, maybe.
From Michigan?
From Michigan.
And so she was a miner, daughter of a miner?
Her father was the carpenter at the Pennsylvania mine, which was down on East Fawcett, East Broadway.
And where was she raised?
Down on Fawcett Street.
And what was that address?
919 East Fawcett.
And where's that at now?
It was between Broadway and Park Street. I'm going to take you way back, but it was a block west of, say, the old bars that were down there. I don't remember them.
What was that, in Finntown?
No, they're farther east than Finntown. Atlantic Street isn't there anymore. But it was 900 blocks east. And there is nothing now 900 blocks east. I don't even think the Belmont is that far east.
Well, was your grandfather, when he was carpenter at the Pennsylvania, how late did he work into the century?
He died of consumption or TB or whatever they called it then in about 1903.
Oh, okay.
Left a very small family.
And he and his wife, when did they come to Houghton, Hancock from Ireland?
No. I don't know when. My grandmother was born in Michigan.
Oh, okay.
See, and she was born the year Lincoln was shot. Or she was born the week Lincoln was shot, 1865. And she had an older sister and 5 younger sisters.
Oh, so that family been
They
there
were
a long
all
time.
born back in Michigan. None of them were born in Ireland.
Had her father been in the Civil War, you know?
That I don't know. Well, I don't think he was a very nice man. He gave the children away. He gave my grandmother to a lumber camp when she was 6 years old to wash dishes. And her mother spent 2 years trying to find her. And my grandmother had run away from this camp, and a farm family found her. And they took her, and here's this poor mother looking for this child, Nellie. And my grandmother said the farm was across the river from an Indian camp. And she would sing all these Indian lullabies to us as children when we were growing up. Honey, 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 hospital. But then her mother found her and brought her back to the family in Michigan. And she never again spoke to the husband, but she had all these kids afterwards, She never again spoke his name.
So your grandmother, the one who was young, Nellie, when she came to Butte, her husband was working at the Pennsylvania. Did she got married in Butte?
No, they got married back in Michigan.
Okay,
so see, my mother and the 3 oldest, my mother and her 2 sisters were born in Michigan. And then the 2 brothers were born here in Butte after they came to Butte.
So when she came to Butte, she was married to the fellow who was the carpenter. And then what, did she work here in Butte?
I suppose, I don't know what they did, except when he died, like in 1903 or 1904, she had to go to work.
She was a widow.
She was a widow with all these 5 children. And I know my mother worked in boarding houses and things like that, 10, 12 years old. They all had to work to support the family.
So your mother was the one who had to go to work in 1903?
Right. Her older sister stayed home and took care of the babies. And my mother and my grandmother went to work.
And where did they work?
Cleaning the ACM, or whatever the company, Heinze telephone offices, and cleaning all the offices for the company. So their company a long way back.
So did they clean for the Corrette family, for example?
No, my grandmother cooked for them. She was a very good, good Irish cook. Them and the Ryans the old Corettes. And another side effect of my grandmother, she couldn't read or write, and when she was 57 years of age, she decided she wanted to learn. She went to school.
Where did she learn to do that?
The business college.
Did she keep up any kind of relationship with the families that she cooked for over the rest of her life?
Yes. The Ryans, that's going to be a story off camera. I'm sorry. But Jack and Bob Critt were little boys when she worked for them, and Jack came to see her every Christmas Eve with his dozen roses and his box of chocolates to see Nellie. And my grandmother made him his special cookies every Christmas.
What were those? Do you remember?
I think they were the Irish soda bread cookies that we all grew up with.
Uh-huh.
But nobody made them then. I should have made some for you. But we all grew up with them. We called them breakfast cookies. But Jack Critt liked them.
And then, with the Ryans were the same way with her? Or
Yes.
They just had a good, positive relationship?
A good, friendly relationship. She was just a nice woman. She said 8 or 10 rosaries a day, and she sponsored all the priests and gave them all their receptions, you know what I mean? She was just a good person. In fact, in the 30s, a woman dropped dead and left 3 children. And when my aunt came home from work that day, there were 3 new people in the house. And my grandmother said they have to have a place to live, they have to be raised and well done.
And where was this house?
This was down on 919 East Fawcett.
Same place.
And the oldest one was Anne Model Malaback. She married Joe Malaback that had the grocery store on Arctic South. But my grandmother raised her. Raised her brother Charlie and raised her sister Minnie. Just as I said, she was just that. Those children were alone. Somebody had to do it. She just went down and got them.
And she was a widow herself.
Yes.
At the time.
And I mean, her family was all raised.
That's a neat story.
But here's my aunts, that weren't married. They came home from work, and guess what? Mama had more kids. But they put them all through business school and beauty school. The boy did go to CCC camp. So that's back Depression. It was during the Depression.
Okay. And then where did your mom work?
Mother worked for the ACM telephone office.
Did she work with ag drumming? Do you remember?
Oh, I don't know that name because that's going to go way back past my Aunt Dill. Finally, she was the chief, what they call the chief operator. She was head of that department in the years to come. But my mother was the operator on duty the night of the Granite Mine speculative fire.
Did she ever tell you what happened that night? Or
She said it was one miserable night.
a lot of telephone traffic?
And then during the flu epidemic, now Charlie, my oldest brother, was born on the 14th of February, 1918. And during the flu epidemic, my father was still in the service. My father was still in the Army. And they were living down at 919 Fawcett Street with her brother and 2 brothers and 2 sisters and her mother, And Mother was working at the ACM telephone office, and they locked her in there. They brought her food for 2 months.
Just to keep the telephones going?
Just to keep the telephones going. She didn't see my brother Chuck for 2 months.
Wow.
And they left the food outside the door, and the ACM telephone office was up on Court Street. And you went up those steep steps and up there. The ventilation department was up there too. But she was in there for 2 months.
That was out on Courts west of or east of Main Street?
Yes.
Where the pay office back in there?
I was going to say it's next to where Harkins used to be. There was a door on Court Street, and you went up the steep steps, and